Hello, and welcome back to another episode. Something a little bit different this week. I'm going to be talking about all the really crazy, expensive stuff that's in my collection, about 10 of them. So, I guess we'll get started with the first one. A lot of these are kind of just games or systems or things that I've wanted for quite a long time. Very few of them are just kind of spur of the moment, random buys. This is the one random buy. This is Gene Troopers for the original Xbox. Most people thought this version was cancelled. It should have been, because it sucks. It's a first-person shooter developed by, I can't remember, PlayLogic and Cauldron. It's really, really bad. The PAL version of the Xbox launch was cancelled. I had to buy this from Germany. Now, it's fully in English. Not that I'm going to play through it, because it's just simply that bad. I did, however, have a quick snoop whilst looking into this video about, what's rare, what's expensive in my collection, what haven't I seen ever anywhere. And this was it. Most people had assumed this was cancelled, and whilst it certainly should have been, I was able to pick it up for a tenner off of Amazon Germany. I do not recommend this. I do not recommend this game. It is absolutely appalling. The only reason I hang on to it is because it was 10 quid. And it's a fun talking piece, I guess. I've played it enough for it to be worth the tenner I paid for it. I have a general rule of, for every 15 minutes I play a game, that's worth about a quid's worth of money. So it's kind of like playing an arcade game. So you pop in a quid, that will like $1 or whatever the hell you do. And then you play it for maybe 15 minutes, die horribly, and then you pop in another quid and just kind of go off of that. 10 quid, that's 2.5 hours. Yeah, I mean, considering that's how long I played it for, I think that was certainly worth the money. So getting into stuff that I actually care about now, I'm going to go with Dust: An Elysian Tale. Now, Dust is probably one of my favourite games of all time. I will be doing a top 10 at some point once I figured out exactly what my top 10 are. Got my top 5. I've never been able to do my top 10. I like it so much, I've even got the plushie of Fidget, who's the main character, the main companion, and then the Sword of Ara, which is a USB, which has a PC version on it. Bought this off of IndieBox for like 15 quid, because IndieBox still sells stuff. Had to double check with their Twitter account, but yeah, they do, which is nice. I will be talking more about this, but apparently this version on the Switch, which came out was announced 5 years ago in 2018. It was my first Switch game. It was the first Switch game I ever bought. And I was like, I'll get a Switch eventually, I'm sure, blah, blah, blah. But I needed a physical release of Dust. Because by that point, it had been 7 years. 7 years since I'd gotten a hold of this. For the first time on the Xbox 360. So, I had to own it, didn't I? Had to own it. Comes with a little manual. Comes with one of those holo cards that limited run like doing. Molding a Fidget. Voice acting's great. The combat's great. It's one of those games that has what I felt was a very poignant moment. It's a bit where you fail to save this father's life, and all three of the main characters kind of end up arguing, and it's actually quite tense. And it's one of those few moments in games where I felt like, ooh, I've actually felt something outside of, can I blow this guy's head off? So, I want to do a game next. I will do probably the most expensive console I own that isn't a PS5. And it's probably one of the rarer ones. That is correct. It is the Nintendo Virtual Boy. Now, this has been talked about to death. It does glow red. It does hurt your eyes. And it was a lot of money. However, I wanted it. I wanted it. I wanted this stupid ass controller. I wanted the little adapter that means you can play it off of the mains without having to blow, how much was it? 6 AA batteries for about 2.5 hours of gameplay. But yeah, it does hurt your eyes. It does hurt your eyes after playing it for about 10 minutes because who the hell decided, hey, let's make all of the video game stuff red and black? That being said, I've only got about 6 games for it so far. I'm planning to get some more. Predominantly repros. I'm more interested in the repro side of things, especially considering how freaking expensive Virtual Boy games are. But it was one of the very few Nintendo consoles that I didn't own. So, kinda had to own it. Okay, back to games. These next 3 are going to be Saturn ones because it's the Saturn. And I argued that 2 of these are the single most expensive things that I have in my collection, just looking today online. I mean, they are absolutely up there. It's mad. But I'm going to start off with Burning Rangers. Now, if you've seen my Saturn video, you know that I've talked a little bit about this in the past. It's okay. I've played it maybe once. But to be fair, I didn't blow... Ooh, how much was this now? 200 to 300 quid. I blew 27 off of Amazon about 10 years ago. I played it once. It was fine. I need to play through it again, actually, because it's Sonic Team's last game for the Saturn, which way they were developing instead of a Sonic game on the flagship Sega console of the time. I think we all know what happened there. And I'm not saying that's the reason the Saturn failed. It was because of its ludicrously complex architecture that made it impossible to program for that and all of the just generally bad decisions that Sega was making at the time. However, speaking of the Saturn, and speaking of games that are pretty solid for it, Magic Knight Raya. I looked into this today. 600 quid? 600 quid for an unboxed version. It can go for considerably more, but I got this for 36 quid. And a friend of mine, who's no longer a friend of mine, bought it over from America for me, in addition to a couple of other games, including Kirby's Air Ride, which, that game's fine. It's kind of one note. But this, I'm a big fan of Magic Knight Raya. I am. I've been trying to get into the anime. I haven't really been able to, just because it's fairly standard 90s anime schlock. But the game is actually a hell of a lot of fun. I'm not a big 16-bit fan. I'm not a big RPG fan either. But I am a big fan of tight gameplay, good storytelling, and quite frankly, just being fun, which it is. It is fun above all else. That brings us to, again, the single most expensive Saturn game I own, Panzer Dragoon Saga. This goes for £1,000 now, which is eBay prices, and that is pretty bonkers. And quite frankly, I'm not entirely sure if it's entirely warranted. But yeah, it is still, however, probably the crown achievement of my entire collection. So funny story with this though, that I don't think I mentioned in the Saturn video. When I first got this, my mother bought what we thought was a copy of it on Amazon back in 2012 for 60 quid. A manual arrives. And it's like, oh, it was just the manual. It was just the manual for Panzer Dragoon Saga. Now, I'd had my Saturn about a year by this point. And to And this was kind of tippy top of my list. Panzer Dragoon Saga was the game I wanted for it because it was just different and unique, and I was really getting into Panzer Dragoon thanks to Panzer Dragoon Legacy, which at the time was called The Will of the Ancients, which is kind of the fan site for Panzer Dragoon. But unfortunately, I had to wait another year and 140 quid later for my mum to actually find another copy and for me to get it. I did pay her for that. Manual, by the way, because I'm not a jackwad. But yeah, I still need to play that through properly. It's just, when it's so freaking expensive, you don't want to spend time on it, because it's like, it might break, it might be horrible, it might just not work, it might just... It's a stressful situation, as I'm sure you can appreciate. As I'm sure anyone who collects games knows, you don't want to break the more expensive stuff in your collection under any circumstances. So, yeah, moving on. The next item, there's 2 other games and there's 2 other items. I'm going to split this up a bit. The first one is the Super Nintendo Action Pack, which I saw this in a shop local to me called Geek Portal, which is a very cool shop, and I know the owner. And I traded in about 200 quid worth of stuff. He was looking for a price of this thing for a very long time because he just simply could not find anything about this. I still couldn't find anything about this, so I thought, why not? I need a SNES. I've got a bunch of SNES games that I want to play, that I've maybe played once, and it's on my list. Everything is on my list. Everything is on my list. So, decided to get this. Comes with the Super Scope. Came with 2 controllers, which was nice of him. And yeah, box was banged up. So this is primarily held together with tape and prayers and is not generally to be touched. And I still need to probably go through the inside and tape everything up there with probably very strong industrial tape, which I know might be heretical, but I like a boxed SNES, and I'd rather the box not collapse from age, time, and accidents. So yeah, that's the action pack. It's fine. It's fine. But that brings us to probably no, there's 2. There's 2 games left. First of all, Gotcha Force for the GameCube. This isn't the principal game I want to own for the GameCube, that's insanely expensive. That would be Fire Emblem, because I'm a big fan of Fire Emblem. But Gotcha Force was up there. I've wanted this game for about 10 years as well. Most of it's from 10 years ago. Most stuff I either want or have is because I wanted it 10 years ago. This I bought last year. I typically do one ludicrously expensive game a year. That's just been the last couple of years, though. I think this year I'm going to make it Knuckles Chaotix, because that's the only major 32 or 16-bit Sonic game that I actually own. But Gotcha Force, released by Capcom in 2003. So it's 20 years old this year. It's okay. It kind of plays like The Unholy War, or it plays like Wrath Unleashed, or it plays like Virtual Force. Virtualon. That's the one. Plays like Virtualon. It's okay. I mean, I've played it for about 10 minutes, and I think it is a drag. And I think its multiplayer requirement of, you have to have... You can't just use any character. You have to have, like, save-specific slots for every single player, which is just really dumb. That's really dumb, and it's archaic. It was even archaic at the time. But, you know what? It's basically a very good Virtualon. It's a very good Virtualon clone, and yeah, wouldn't say it was worth 200 quid. It was not. I should have bought it 10 years ago when it was 80. But yeah, right, okay. I know I said I was going to alternate, but I think I'm going to save the big one for last. So this one is Fire Emblem Fates. I'd imagine this is going to jump up now, considering that the 3DS store has been offline for about 2-3 months, depending on when you're watching this. And yeah, I'm a big proponent of physical only. I don't like digital only stuff. I just don't. And when consoles turn digital only, I'm going to stop buying modern games because sod off. But as a result, that led me to buying this version of Fates because it has all 3 of the games. Now, I've already got Conquest, I've already got Birthright, but Revelations is on here physically, as are the other 2. So, personally don't know why they didn't just release this version of the game. It would have been better, but here we are. Thank you, Nintendo. And it's probably going to be about 10-15 years before they go, you know what, maybe we should do a re-release of the game that people want to play because we're making it impossible with our stupid... Anyway, enough now, Nintendo, and not porting games that we really want and just basically locking all of their decent stuff to old hardware. Fates is probably my second favourite Fire Emblem game. I might do a Fire Emblem video. I've only got into it more so with Waifu Emblem, that kind of era after Awakening, as I've seen it called. I got into it with Awakening, then I kind of fell out of Fire Emblem up until Three Houses. And I found Three Houses was very good. Very good. For oh, how long? 3 years. It occupied my 5th favourite game slot. My 5th favourite game of all time. And then I found the joy that is Triangle Strategy. But we'll get to that in another video. As a result of how much I like Three Houses, I had to kind of go out and track down all the other Emblem games that have been released around that point. Like after Awakening, but before Three Houses. So that led me to Echoes of Valentia, which is really not good. It's really kind of boring. It's boring. It's very standard Fire Emblem storytelling. It's all, oh, there's an evil dragon and a non-evil dragon, and there's this evil kingdom that's invading this other not as evil kingdom, but there's an evil kingdom. It's just dumb, and I hate it. Then it's got my least favourite anime trope, which is the girl who's like, I love you so much person who's, you know, about as bland as a freaking Ritz cracker. Just, no. Fates, on the other hand, is a wonderful, horrible, garbagey mess with really bad storytelling, really nonsensical plot progression, and a character who, in the Conquest mode, where you stay on his side, is so cartoonishly evil it becomes unrealistic. However, unlike Echoes of Valentia, the characters are actually engaging. The animation is really good. And it's just the right kind of odd for me to really get on board with it. So, yeah. I'm a big fan of Fates. I'm a big fan of the Conquest mode, and I'm a big fan of the Norian royalty. So, that is the bulk of it. Now I'm going to get out something that is absolutely freaking gargantuan. I'm not getting it out of this box, though. That is the Panzer Dragoon... Oh, no, sorry, not Panzer Dragoon. That is the Steel Battalion controller for the original Xbox. It is a 40-button, 3-pedaled, absolutely freaking huge monstrosity, and I love it. So this was released in 2000 and... Ooh, a very good question. 2002. Steel Battalion was. It was released in 2002. It came with the game, thankfully. But it was a lot of money then. It is even more money now, because nobody wanted a 40-button controller that only worked on one game at the time and then would only work on one other game afterwards, that they took down after 2 years. You can't play Line of Contact online anymore. Yeah, I'm going to do a whole Steel Battalion video, probably showing the usual setup I have, which is I use my desk, and then I have a monitor, and then I have this massive freaking controller, and then underneath I've got the pedals, with an Xbox plugged into the side just for good measure to actually play the freaking game. But my mum bought me this about quite a long time ago, 4 or 5 years. I've played it a fair number of times, and I am still very bad at Steel Battalion because it didn't have the instructions. It didn't have the actual instructions with it, so unfortunately we had to print off the Steel Battalion manual from the library in all of its black and white technical manual glory. It reads like one as well. It reads like an actual manual would for a giant 150-foot mech. And you're as slow as a 150-foot mech would be, and I've only ever really been able to beat 2 missions, and that's without the manual, and that's because I figured out that you can walk in a straight line without turning. Because I can never figure out how to do the turning. It's got 2 joysticks, and neither of them are quite as... it's not as intuitive as that. You need to do like a training course to pilot this bloody thing properly. It must make the multiplayer really interesting, and if there's one pipe dream I've ever had, it is having 2 of these things hooked up together and then playing through like a few missions of Line of Contact, because this has system link. I don't know how many for. I think it was like 4, but it has system link, so it's still playable. You just need 2 400-quid controllers to do it with that only work on 2 freaking games, and then you need someone who's willing to sit there for like 4 hours figuring out how to drive the bloody thing, and then you can get around to actually playing the game. It's kind of like owning a very expensive board game that you maybe played once. You play it once because it's too much of a hassle to learn all the rules. It's too much of a hassle to actually do any. That's it. It's the Twilight Imperium of video game controllers. That's what it is. Ludicrously expensive, ludicrously large. You maybe play it a few times and then you put it away because it's too difficult to learn. And you can't rope in anyone else to do it for you. But yeah, that's a look at some of the expensive games in my collection, expensive consoles and expensive accessories. I hope you liked it. If you could give me a thumbs up and a like, that would be great. I know they're the same thing, but I like to be, redundant. So, yeah. Hit that like bell, hit that bell, hit that like button, and subscribe. That would be great. And thank you. That would be me signing off.